ever need to lift something heavy off the ground or put a body in a trunk? Well, if you do, you need to learn how to do the deadlift. Even if you're not putting bodies in trunks, you should still probably learn how to do the deadlift because it's a hugely beneficial movement. A lot of compound stuff going on in there across all different muscles and joints. And if you do it correctly, it has a ton of bang for the buck, and it has to be something you add back into your workout routine. Even at lightweight, you're gonna get a ton of benefit out of it. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So first things first, the deadlift is not a squat, not even close. Some major differences that go on with that, and the one thing people always do is they tend to make it a squat and they tend to get down really low in their stance and they try to drive up through their heels and make it all quad dominant. It's actually not quad driven. It's very, very minimal quad drive involved. The majority of your deadlift actually involves your hamstrings finishing by your lower back. So we see two major issues with the deadlift when people are thinking about the muscle groups they're using. First of all, they make it a squat, trying to get too much quad and some glute involvement, and they make it way more of a back lever than it has to be, and that's where we see people really screw up their lower backs. If you're doing it correctly, it's actually hamstring driven, which opens up the knee and the hip joint, and it finishes with the lower back. Now, why does your lower back get sore when you deadlift? Well, for a number of reasons. Number one, the isometric contraction you have to maintain at the bottom position of the deadlift is so tight and so strong, you're trying to keep yourself and get folded in half when you're pulling this weight off the floor. That isometric contraction places a ton of stress on the lower back, and that's where we develop the soreness. It's not, or it shouldn't be, from levering up at the lower back. Now, if you're doing the deadlift correctly, you will feel in the lower back the next day, provided it's not sore, it's just muscular soreness. It's not like a mechanical issue, and you'll know the difference. And you should also feel it through the glutes and in the hamstrings. Not gonna feel it in a lot of other places, maybe traps are a little sore, tired, and that's about it. Beyond that, if you're doing it right, those are the major spots you should be feeling it in. So I get my feet directly under hips, and if you look at the barbell that you have, most folks will have a smooth portion of barbell right here. That's a perfect place to line your shins up under. Now, if you're taller, you might have to go a little bit wider, but for most folks, average height, feet directly underneath the hips, toes turn out just a little bit in natural position, shins just off the bar a tiny bit, barbell at the back of your shoelaces, and that's how we set up for this. The reason we want the feet directly under the hips is because we don't want them wide like this, and if we're pulling something heavy up off the ground, two things happen. One, the knees get in the way of the arms, and secondly, we have a lot of energy wasted onto the sides of the feet pushing that way instead of straight down and straight up. I want energy going down and energy coming straight up. I don't want any angular displacement of energy, so having your feet out wide and pushing out to the sides and losing that energy is wasted energy, it's inefficient. So feet directly under hips, toes out naturally, shins a couple inches off the bar roughly, and then we're gonna settle into our bottom position. Now, the bottom position, hugely important. What we tend to see folks do is they get set up good here, and then they just reach down and they try to find a good position. That is not the proper way to do it. The best way for you to do it is set yourself up here, and this is where we have to maintain integrity of the spine, and the rest of the body has to be in the right position. So when I say that, I mean, we get set here, and before I reach down and grab the bar, I pull my shoulders back, position of attention, and now I fold at the hip, keep my chin down like I'm holding a softball underneath my chin, and now once I fold at the hip and I have this natural position here, now I simply sink my knees down, latch onto my bar. You can do dual overhand or over under grip, it doesn't matter. And now my weight is on my heels, my toes are light, the bar is back just off my shin, and it's underneath my shoulder blades. So if you were to look at me from the side, you'll see my arms angle back slightly. That's the position I want to actually set up in. When people set up like this and try to get in a position, they don't actually get that spine in a really well set position. So the best thing you do is take a couple seconds to breathe. 1, 2, 3, set, fold, grab, now pull. Pretty straightforward, but it has to be done correctly, and you have to maintain the spinal integrity. When you're deadlifting, it's hugely important to keep this chin neutral. Do not look up at the ceiling. Don't look up at the ceiling when you're squatting. Don't look up at the ceiling when you're deadlifting. Just don't do it. Your chin stays in line with your spine like you're wearing a C-spine neck collar or some sort of neck brace, or your neck is fused in one solid piece. Where your body goes, your neck goes. So again, I set up, I hit hinge hip, neutral spine, settle down to the bottom position, grab my bar, and then I start my lift. So there's one drill that if you have a problem keeping that spine in line, there's a drill that you can do or have a partner help you with. It's easier with a partner. Take a PVC, or in this case a broomstick. I don't have any PVC laying around the house. You're going to take this and you're actually going to set it across your back so that it's touching the back of your head, your shoulder blades, and right between your cheeks. So from this position, this is exactly what you want to maintain throughout your range of motion. All 3 points of contact should still be on this bar. So all 3 points of contact should remain on this bar as I move. Here, all the way back up. Now if I'm screwing things up, and I do that, or I do that, or I do that, we know the spine is not staying aligned. So in order to get this habit of keeping a nice neutral spine and a tight, rigid core, think about using this drill. Fold, hinge, settle, drive, open. Fold, hinge, settle, drive, open. That'll help folks develop that proprioceptive pattern that kind of keeps them in that nice, solid spinal position. So now looking at this from a side angle so you get a better perspective of it perhaps, set up here, chin stays neutral, spine stays neutral, hinge, settle down, grab my bar, push the ground away through my heels, extend my hips and knees open, and return back down to the ground. Now a couple things to note there. You can see that spine stays nicely in line, the chin stays down, it keeps a nice neutral spine the whole way down, and that creates tension that stays rigid and controlled throughout the entire back, and that's what we want. You'll see as I set up here at the bottom position, my arms are angled slightly back. So as I start my lift, my lats are actually keeping that bar back over the top of my shoelaces. As I pull up, I keep that bar over my shoelaces. Once the bar gets to my knee, I think about squeezing my glutes and driving my hips forward. Now, the way down is where people screw a lot of things up. My knees stay like this right now, where they're semi-locked out. I hinge at the hip again, get down to the knee, and then I settle down to this position here. What you'll notice about that last position I just showed you is that my butt is up higher in the air. And when I say people make it a squat, they tend to do this. If you're an Olympic weightlifter, cool. But if chances are that you're not, and you're just doing a conventional deadlift for the sake of fitness and or strength training, your hips need to be up high. Reason being is because with our hips up high, we create tension in the hamstring to lock in our knee, our hip, and lock our lower back and pelvis into position for safety's sake, and then push the heels open with the hamstrings snapping us forward. In order to get that tension back in the hamstrings, butt goes back, I get to that position where I feel my hamstrings stretch, and then I settle down, keeping that little tension right here in the hammies of that stretched feeling. And I maintain that without dropping my butt. So if done correctly, I come to that position every single time. Done incorrectly, what you'll notice is my hips will go back to that position to start the movement anyway. So if it's done incorrectly, your hips are going to pop up until they create tension in the hamstrings, and then you're going to bring the bar off the floor. So cut out the middleman, raise your hips early, keep tension in the hamstring and across the lower back, and then push the ground away through the heels. Bar gets to the knee. Now I squeeze the glutes, drive the hips forward, and that's where the lower back comes into play a little bit. On the way down, we push the butt back. That bar gently glides down the front of the thigh. Once it gets to the knee, I drop my butt, come back down to my start position. Again, this is neutral. Arms are back, lats are engaged, up.